Welcome to Get Over It, the Consciousness Transforming Podcast for exceptional 21st century living. We've got a show on Reiki today, but it's Plant Spirit Reiki. We're going to be speaking with Fay Johnstone, and we're going to be talking about her book, Plant Spirit Reiki, Energy Healing with the Elements of Nature. And boy, during this time of COVID, this is something that we definitely need. So we're going to walk through this, and she's going to tell us about what she does, how she does it, and if you have to be a Reiki practitioner to use some of the techniques that she shares. Very insightful show coming up. Now, the information shared on Get Over It uses intuitive and pragmatic insight to help you shift your consciousness to break through blocks and release energy that is no longer needed. Yes, we're going to help you let go of the BS that is holding you back. But you know, I always ask that question, are you truly ready to? And by the way, folks, BS is belief system. A bit about me for my new listeners. Intuitive since birth. I'm a third-generation intuitive with over 3 decades of experience supporting people to break through the blocks along their path. I'm a strategist for personal and professional transformation, revealing cutting-edge information that enables you to prosper and thrive. I spent 25 successful years in corporate America as an executive sales professional, and I am the founder of Healing Visions Ministries and the Northern California Children's Education Network, a 501c3 nonprofit. I also authored 2 books. I provide consultations and healings in all areas of life that heal the mind-body-spirit connection, allowing you to live your very best life. Now, my clients tell me that I keep it real while providing them with accurate information to assist them along their journey as a spirit living a human existence. But they also say, if you really don't want to know, don't ask Monique. My background includes a doctorate in metaphysics, Reiki master teacher, ordained minister, and clinical hypnotherapist. So whether you are stressed, depressed, or possessed, I can help. To find out more about me and the services I offer, go to my website, and that's MoniqueChapman.com, and I invite you to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. My guest today, Fay Johnstone, combines 20 years of Reiki practice with herbal and shamanic training to assist us with our personal transformation through the healing power of nature. The author of Plants That Speak, Souls That Sing, Fay offers treatments and training on Reiki and plant spirit communication across the UK, online, and from places near her home in Scotland. So welcome, Fay. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Monique. It's really, I'm always delighted to come and chat about plants and Reiki and more plants, basically. So thank you.
She's a plant Reiki girl, and I absolutely love it because I Reiki my own plants. I have a rose garden on the side of my house. I live on a corner, and when I'm doing my work with the roses, I'm Reikiing them, and they just blossom, and they love it, and everybody stops by, and it's like, how'd you get your roses to do that? And I said, I love them. So you're going to share your love with Reiki and the plants with our role today. So let's start a little bit with your background. How long have you been doing Reiki, and when did you make that Reiki and plant connection?
So I've been, so it's 20 years that I have been attuned to Reiki and practicing Reiki. And I think perhaps like many of your listeners who get started on their spiritual path, it starts at first as something which is kind of a little bit in the closet. It's like something that you do when you're not doing your regular job. You do it kind of on weekends, and you kind of, you've got that spiritual book hidden under the desk at work, you know. And so I was like this for a while, and I was doing kind of my Reiki treatments in the evenings or on the days I wasn't at work. And I had a kind of moment, shall we say, where I realized that things had to shift. And this was, I had a really amazing job. I was living in Paris. You know, I was doing all those things which outwardly looked very successful, and those were those things which I had been kind of conditioned to think that is what success was for somebody who was young and in their 20s, you know, and the handbags and the high heels and the cocktails after work and all this kind of thing. And I just really had this realization a kind of crumbling, shall we say, of just admitting to myself, that moment when you admit, something's not working. And I wouldn't call it a dark night of the soul. I don't feel it was like really serious like that, but it really woke me up, and it made me go, hang on a second, there's something more. I'm miserable. There's something more to life than this. And I started then to this really wasn't long, actually, after I had been attuned to Reiki. So it's really funny how Reiki slowly, for me, started to work its magic, because when we talk about Reiki, we get so hung up sometimes on that dictionary definition of what Reiki is. We sort of talk about it being a Japanese form of energy healing, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, for me, Reiki it was like that permission button to follow my heart. It opened me up to the passion that was inside me that actually I wasn't even allowing myself to connect with, because I was kind of doing the things, I was going through the process, the motions of life, get the job, do this, work hard. And I wasn't really allowing the Reiki, the spiritual path, that the light inside of me to shine. And what happened when I kind of took that, so I had that sort of moment when I was working in Paris, and I was like, God, I'm miserable. I need to change something. And it took me some time, and I would spend a lot of time in lovely Parisian cafes journaling, just with myself, journaling and doing my self-Reiki practice. And then there was one afternoon, a storefront caught my eye, and it was just full of plants, these beautiful plants. And there was something in my heart that just said, I need these in my life. And at that moment, I bought as many of those plants as I could possibly carry, and I took them back to my apartment. My flatmates, who were also my work colleagues, thinking, what is going on with this? Because, I was the girl in the office who didn't even know the types of flowers that we got delivered to the office every week. I just saw the yellow ones or the long ones, daisy-like looking ones. I hadn't got a clue about plants. I thought that plants was the thing that my mum was into, and it was a bit, old-fashioned, or, not really for somebody. It's just for me, shall we say. And actually what happened then is, from that moment in, those plants just kind of leapt into my heart. And it really was me opening up to them. And if you fast forward a year, I had left that job. I returned to the UK. I was living not in a city, but I was living in a small village. I was growing my own vegetables. I started foraging, and I started studying herbal medicine, and I started working for a conservation volunteer organization. So my whole world, actually, through kind of that listening process and the self-Reiki, I started to invite those plants in, and that was like their little permission. And they went, whoa, okay, she's ready, we're going in. And then from that moment on, my love for plants, I just followed my joy. We hear often about people following their passions and following their joy, because it's that vibration of joy that lights you up, which is that, attractive vibration that helps you to manifest and bring more of that abundance and flow and so on. And from that moment on, I ended up moving to Nova Scotia in Canada, and I ran a flower and herb farm for 5 years with my partner. And that's actually, I wrote about that in my first book, which is called Plants That Speak, Souls That Sing, because that was when I had this awakening. And I started to realize that those plants were really talking to me. They had something to say. And it was at that stage that I started to involve those plants into my Reiki treatments, into my self-practice. And I started to really open up to the possibility of kind of, I was just being guided. I was listening to the plants. So that's kind of, it's quite a long way of sharing the story there of how those plants, I say this to everybody, you give them an inch and they put they plant the seeds, or they put their roots in, and they continue to grow, and they don't, I find the plants are quite persistent. They don't leave me alone. So it's, and I think it was recently sort of, well, in the last couple of years when I started to think about writing Plant Spirit Reiki and which is this book, and putting it all together, because I think I suddenly realized that actually, because, and you might feel like this too, and I'm sure anyone else listening who also practices Reiki, because I've practiced Reiki for so long, 20 years, Reiki just kind of flow, we are Reiki. I am Reiki.
It's like you live, exactly. Yeah, you live the energy.
When I think I sort of then started to realize that actually when I was with the plants, when I was kind of sitting, meditating with plants, or when I was making it, say, a herbal medicine or an elixir, or even just gardening, I actually, woke up to the fact that, oh, actually, I'm being Reiki here. So actually, it felt like it wasn't 100% authentic, not to admit to everybody, but actually, you know what? I think I'm doing this plant thing with Reiki too, And so that's why that's what I wanted to speak to in the book. I wanted to actually share, of how powerful it can be for our Reiki practice. By adding in the plants, and also how powerful it can be if we're interested in plants or gardening or herbal medicine and so on, by kind of switching or just acknowledging that flow of Reiki.
Okay, now most of my audience knows about Reiki, at least on some level. How do you incorporate the energy of Reiki into plants, whether it's an inside plant? Well, let's start with an inside plant and then maybe an outside plant. How do you incorporate that energy?
So for me, when we are, so I think the sort of most obvious thing that people think about when we think of working with plants is we think of giving them Reiki. I'm going to tell you a little bit more later on about how there's other aspects to Plant Spirit Reiki. But to answer your question, when we're working with houseplants, we can do hands-on healing. But for me, sometimes plants are so delicate, we don't want to kind of place our hands directly onto a plant. So I will ask Reiki to flow, and we can beam distance healing at them. And I like to give Reiki. So I'm really, and just for anyone who doesn't practice Reiki, when I say I give Reiki, what I'm saying is, and you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about your roses, is I'm giving these plants my love. I'm giving them my appreciation, my gratitude that they are in my life and sharing their beauty or their medicines with me. So this is what I mean when if you don't understand Reiki, anyone listening who is not attuned to Reiki, just replace that word Reiki with love and appreciation. And so, I like to give Reiki in the water that I give the plants, maybe even hold the plant's roots. I mean, there are so many different ways for our companion plants that we can add, we can kind of send Reiki to them. And the reason, people often ask, well, why, the obvious reason to send Reiki to your plants is so that they grow healthily, so that they might blossom, so that they are free of disease and so on, and so they kind of look, for their well-being. But this is the great thing about Plant Spirit Reiki, and this is the thing that I like to teach, is that actually when we care for our green friends, we are actually raising the vibration of our communities, our homes, and our local spaces. So if you are caring for plants in your home with love, with appreciation, with gratitude, that their vibration is going to be, beautiful and wonderful and shining, and that will affect your vibration. So you're bringing in this Reiki, we're asking for Reiki to flow, so we're just bringing in that light and that high vibration. And this is particularly important for not just the plants that we look after in our home and, our vegetable gardens and roses, like you say, but actually it's really important for our local green spaces. So, everybody has a local park near them, or one that they might pass on the way to the supermarket or the grocery store, or we're going to work, and you kind of pass a local green space or a space which just looks like it's not very well cared for, that has a bit of a dodgy vibration. It just doesn't feel quite right. And those are the green spaces that actually really need us to send our love and appreciation and send that beautiful vibration of Reiki to, because those places in our communities will really, really benefit the surrounding community if they are receiving that high vibrational energy of that love and light that is Reiki. And, obviously, when we hear of terrible, like the fires, for example, that we, in California, or, for example, in the Amazon and also Australia, all these terrible ways that the environment further afield is being devastated. This is when we kind of turn on our Reiki hands, and we can send distance healing. But I just like to stress to people that it's really important to actually really cultivate that relationship with the green world that is on your doorstep, because that is really, really going to help you and your well-being. And I really believe that our well-being, our physical, our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual well-being is really intricately linked to our relationship with the earth, with nature, and and our plant friends. And so we can kind of start right here where we are. We don't always have to be kind of beaming distance Reiki to like the Amazon or these habitats which we know are endangered or under threat. I think it's that importance of starting local. And looking after your own, it's like really, I think, we talk about it a lot in the healing profession, is like, you need to look after your own personal development, so that you can hold that lovely, shining, sacred space for others.
Well, you mentioned, paying attention to our local area, and maybe, if there's a park or a patch of land someplace that is not really thriving. What if you're not attuned to Reiki? Is there anything that you can do for that energy, for that space?
Yeah, this is great. This is a really great question, actually. So one of the things I love to do is simply show my appreciation to those plants and trees and green spaces that I walk by. And plants do respond. So, for example, if you were in front of a tree, you could kind of greet that tree. And I'm not going to sort of tell you how to do it. Some people like to kind of speak out loud to their plants. Some people just find a way, an inner way, of kind of inwardly smiling to that tree as a kind of acknowledgement. And that's actually a lovely exercise to do, is acknowledging nature. And so you take yourself for a walk, and you can be in your own garden, if you're lucky enough to have one, or in a local park, or a lovely, sometimes if you live in a neighborhood which has a really gorgeous avenue with lovely trees on it, that kind of street, and just walk down and open your senses to the natural world. Really, really start to observe with your eyes, with your ears, and utilize your sense of smell and touching, so that you can start to kind of form a relationship with these plants which are surrounding you. And it's this remembering of our relationship with nature, which I think is really important in the whole kind of well-being puzzle, because we've become incredibly disconnected from the source of our well-being, which is, our home, which is the earth. We are incredibly disconnected from, the earth's creatures, and think how disconnected we are really from getting dirty and muddy, or getting wet, even from a downpour, from a shower. We kind of isolate ourselves. We put ourselves very conveniently behind, closed doors and closed windows, and actually this is what's been so ironic about the COVID-19 pandemic, is that we've all had to isolate within our walls. And we have realized actually how it's, how we go stir crazy. We need the life outside the walls. We need the breeze to, tickle our skin. We need the heat of the sun on our faces, and we need to connect with the natural world. It's a really important part of our well-being, which unfortunately, the way our society has developed, and it's particularly with, you know, the fact that many of us have to live in cities because this is where our jobs and our livelihood are. And, you know, just looking at how we receive food these days, it's very prepackaged, wrapped in cellophane. You know, you're unlikely to find soil on your potatoes or your carrots. You know, you can even, you know, you can just buy them all prepackaged and chopped, or even, you know, or even just get a takeaway. So we're not, so this kind of relationship with the natural world, this is something that, you know, everybody can do. Everybody can get out into nature and start to really experience it through the senses. And that the reason I like to experience it through the senses is because actually when we, you know, when we're kind of using our sense of touch or smell, or just taking in the beautiful forms of trees and bushes and flowers and so on, we're kind of bypassing the brain, you know, that we're using a different system in the body. And then, you know, once we've kind of connected to the outdoor world with these physical senses, and this is when, you know, we start to open to those intuitive senses, those kind of feelings that we get from nature, the gut feelings, or the kind of sense that there's a bit more to a plant than meets the eye, or that sense of, you know, the reason, or just feeling into, oh, actually, you know what, I feel really good when I'm here, whereas I don't feel so good when I'm in this other place, you know. So there's a whole different array. I mean, really, depending on how interested somebody is and how open they are on their kind of spiritual path as to kind of how deep they want to go with their plants. But the very, you know, the first thing to do is to kind of show your joy and appreciation and your love to the natural, you know, to the natural world. Actually acknowledge nature, or rather the plant beings, as conscious. There's something going on there. You know, they don't have the kind of appeal of animals that come up to you and want to have a little cuddle, you know, like a dog if you were walking. But they're there with, you know, they're amazingly complex systems, plants. And so that, and, you know, think about trees have been around for millennia, you know, and so think about the tree on your, you know, on your local street. What has that seen? What has that witnessed? What energy has that been present for? And so this is, you know, this is why it's so fascinating to just start to open up and acknowledge the natural world.
Yes, it is. Folks, we're speaking with Fay Johnstone. Her book, Plant Reiki Spirit Energy Healing with the Elements of Nature. You can check her out at her website, and that's FayJohnstone.com, FayJohnstone.com. Now, Fay, you talked about the, you know, the plants and the beauty and all that, but what about the weeds?
Yeah, I think I get asked this question all the time, and the answer really is yeah. So if particularly anyone listening who's done any herbal medicine or any herbal training will say there aren't any weeds, you know, those dandelions that you want to rip up, they're amazing herbal medicine, the chickweed, the cleavers, all of those things. So yeah, you could say apply. It's really it's just our perception, isn't it? And it's an example really of how we want plants to behave in a certain way. We have long had, you know, in the Western world, this feeling or this sense of dominance over the green kingdom. Oh, it's just a tree, never mind, we can chop those down because we're building this new housing estate and that's going to benefit 100 residents. We need to just chop those trees down, get rid of them, lose the trees. You know, and talking about weeds, the weeds growing in the vegetable garden. Oh, no, I'm sorry, you've got to get out of here. I need to make space for this stuff. So don't get me wrong, I'm a gardener at heart and I love to garden. And in my garden here, I have brambles, I have thistles, I have all of the weeds that we love to hate. And I talk to them, I tell them what I'm going to be doing. And I'm asking them all of the time when I am in my garden, I'm asking them to make space for other plants generally, because we think of a weed as an unwanted plant that might be, let's say, suffocating a rose or dominating. And I just like to talk to my plants. But yeah, it's really all about the mindset of, and I know, many herbalists would say, oh, yeah, save those dandelions and the daisies and so on because they are such valuable herbal medicine. So the plants really do teach us, and it's a question of being open and observing that and noticing. I think it's a really interesting exercise to notice how you feel about certain plants and how irritated they might make you, for example. And again, nature is helping. It's a mirror. It is reflecting back something to you. So, that's another interesting exercise to do. It's actually not in Plant Spirit Reiki. It's an exercise from my first book, Plants That Speak, Souls That Sing. And I called it plant speed dating. And what it was is it's like an invitation to go outside, and you basically choose or allow. I always say when we work with plants that we are allowing ourselves to be chosen, because there's something in there. That conscious being with that big energy field is connecting with your energy field. And there's something going on there, and they will choose you, and you'll feel drawn to certain plants. And this exercise is all about, let's say, pick 5 plants or 3 to 5, however long you have time for, and just sit for 5 minutes with a plant. Note, you can note down things about it. How does it look? What does it look like? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? How do you feel when you're with this plant? And so on. Just like you would if you were speed dating, if you were, if you're at one of those evenings where you get 5 minutes to chat to another person, and you're kind of making assessment, do I like you? Is this worth a second rendezvous? How do I feel when I'm with you? Are you a no? Are you a yes? And this is your kind of, this is a way of getting to know plants, and also getting to know the ones which will have specific medicine for you. And it's not always the ones that we think are beautiful and lovely and, oh my God, this is amazing. It's not always those beautiful ones. Oftentimes those plants, which are a little bit harsher, or they're a little bit prickly, there will be something there that is healing for us and worth exploring. So we're kind of always asking ourselves, ooh, how do I feel? Is this worth exploring a little bit more,
Yeah. We have to be aware. Now, you talk about intention in using Reiki with intention with the plants. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, everything that we do, when we work with Reiki, really, we're working with a healing intention. The intention is like the focus. It's really helping us to get clear on what it is that what are we showing up for today? What are we ready to release? What story are we ready to let go of? What's my intention in being here with this plant? And actually, it's an important part of any Reiki treatment, and it's really important when we're working with, I think it's actually really important when we're connecting with if we're trying to connect with any other beings, or even if it was angels, for example, or through shamanic journeying and so on, other spirit guides, because the intention is the rudder. It guides our mission. And it shows the universe or our spirit guides or the Reiki flow, what are we available for today, or what are we not available for? So intention is really important. It's like essential, really. And I think, and actually just on this point, I'm just going to touch on what the whole ethos around Plant Spirit Reiki. So when we talk about Plant Spirit Reiki, we've just dived into it just previously when we were asking about, sending Reiki to green spaces, to plants, to our environment, connecting with plants, and so on. So I think a lot of people think about Plant Reiki as being just that. It's like, oh, you're just giving Reiki to plants. And actually, that is just one part of the kind of ethos around Plant Spirit Reiki. And the second part is really working with these amazing green beings, so through intention. So working out, so it's really just like Reiki level 1 is all about your kind of self-practice, your self-development, you're kind of working on your personal healing journey. this aspect of Plant Spirit Reiki is looking at, what's my intention with working with these plants? What is it that I'm really striving for? What am I opening for? What am I ready to release? What am I ready to shift? And then what we do is we can work with our plant friends to help us. So through that intention, we are kind of using that as a guide, and we're holding our intention in our heart when we're out in nature, or when we're selecting flower essences. So it's this intention which is going to send out that particular vibration to the plants, to the essences, to nature, if we're taking an intuitive walk in nature. And it's that intention, which is that the vibration of that we're holding in our heart, which is going to guide us to the plants which we need for our personal growth, or to help with that intention. Or with the third aspect of Plant Spirit Reiki, which is working with clients, working in a professional practice, is using intention, or the client's healing intention, so that they are guided through intuitive plant healing, so that they can connect with a plant that they feel drawn to. It's kind of like that vibrational match, and the vibrational match will open to that plant that is ready to share wisdom, to align, to kind of connect with you and bring the healing through.
Okay. Now you talk about, Reiki balls. What is a Reiki ball? And actually, I'm using a lot of Reiki balls for Reiki attunement since COVID. But explain to the audience what a Reiki ball is, and how, if we know how to do it, we can help planet Earth, not just, what we see in front of us, but all planet Earth.
Yeah, this is my all-time favorite exercise, so thank you so much for asking about this, Monique. I love it. And the Reiki balls, so this exercise, which is in the book, is Reiki balls in nature. So the idea behind this, like you say, is sending that beautiful, it's like giving the gift of Reiki to a place in nature. And what we do, if anyone who is attuned to Reiki will probably be familiar with how you would create a Reiki ball. We connect to Reiki in the way that we've been taught. We invite Reiki to flow. And as the Reiki starts to flow, we form an energy ball in our hands. And this can be, it can be the size of a grapefruit, it can be the basketball size, it can be beach ball size, it can be as large as you feel guided. And you hold this lovely energy ball in your hand, and then you place it in an area of nature. So you might want to place it, you might want to place one under your favorite tree as a thank you. You might want to place one in your vegetable garden. You might want to place one, we were talking earlier about, those local parks and places in nature that just kind of look like they need a little bit more care. Place, and you can do this. What's great about this exercise is we can do it so subtly. It's not like we have to sit for hours in meditation and we're not talking out loud to nature. But I always leave my beautiful Reiki balls with the intention that this will be received, and when it is needed, and if it is not needed, it will be absorbed by the earth for healing for the earth. So I'm leaving that intention there. And so I like to do this, it's really to show gratitude. So anybody here who's listening who isn't attuned to Reiki, and they're thinking, well, I'd like to do that too, what we can do is you can just speak your love. You can speak your love and appreciation, and you can bundle that in a ball and leave that in, you can form a ball. We can, because words are energy. Thought forms are energy. So we can think beautiful, loving thoughts and thank yous to the natural world. I mean, this is particularly, especially like if you have a vegetable garden or a garden or even a window box, you want to say thank you. Thanks for growing those cherry tomatoes for me this year. Thanks for growing the cilantro. Yum. And so you can leave that ball of love and appreciation, or Reiki, in that place in nature. And it's an exercise I will do, for example, if we're doing a workshop and we're outside and we've been at a beautiful, often we do workshops, and it's maybe in a lovely garden or healing space, and we, get the students to go outside and just show their gratitude and appreciation. And this is, again, part of reconnecting with the natural world and sort of showing your love and appreciation and acknowledging that green space. So yeah, it's really one of my favorite exercises, and I'd love for some of the people who are listening to go and try it, because it really does. You feel it in your heart. You feel it, and you know that it's doing whatever it is that it needs to do. And that's the great thing about Reiki, right? We know that Reiki always gives us what we need. So
yeah, it goes wherever it's needed, no matter what you think. It goes to where it's
well, that's
needed.
right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That whole detachment from, that's the kind of thing about having the intention. The intention is there to kind of guide you, to be the rudder. But actually, and then it's that beautiful, like you just touched on it. Let go, surrender, and just be guided. Allow what needs to flow, because we're not really, we're not in control of it. We set the course, and actually we all know what happens when we think we're going from A to B. We go around the houses.
Go to A to Z and then come back to B and go, oh, what happened there? Now, one thing you talk about in your book that I really enjoyed, and that was a Reiki medicine bag. But I want you to tell the audience about that. But if you're not attuned to Reiki, could a Reiki practitioner make you a Reiki medicine bag to carry or wear?
Oh, well, that's a lovely idea. Absolutely. So this is really, it's really about making. So I use a medicine bag, for example, when we think of a specific issue that we want to heal, or that we need some help with, like a behavior that we want to let go of, or something that we want to manifest. And I often will create my medicine bag by using, you want to kind of create the bag with a circle of cloth. If I'm a bit lazy, I might use something like an old handkerchief, because it's any sort of a lovely piece of material that I like to sort of carry, have gathering. And what you want to do is you want to gather in this bundle your prayer, your intention, the blessing, the thing that you want to manifest. You want to manifest, your health and well-being, your abundance, your free of whatever it is you wish to be free of, whatever your intention is. And we add this to the bag. And then what I do is you take a walk in nature and notice which elements of nature seem to talk to you, seem to jump out of you. And at this time of year, for example, if I was doing a medicine bag, it would probably be things like pine cones, or maybe even a branch of a pine needle, or some holly berries, or maybe even a pebble from the beach, or a seashell. So we gather kind of the elements from nature, or even a twig, or some people who love to work with, crystals will gather a crystal, or special herbs. And I always am drawn to the aromatics like mints, or at this time of year it would be the evergreens, for example, that seem to leap out at me. And so you gather these little pieces, and you might find you take a walk in nature and there's just one thing that seemed to call to you and nothing else. And that is going to be placed inside your medicine bag. So yes, you could, a practitioner could do this for you, because we just, in that case you would just be sending distance Reiki. But what we do as Reiki practitioners is we would hold that medicine bag in your hands and send Reiki, and you want to charge that bag with Reiki, with love, with your intention, with that, with the visualization of that positive outcome. And and then you seal the bag, and you can carry it around with you. You can have it with you. You can recharge the bag whenever you feel it needs it, and just have it with you and notice how your healing intention, how it shifts over time.
And she said the magic word, folks, intention. So you put your intention out there, and of course Reiki will go wherever it's needed. But the stronger and the clearer your intention, I'm going to say the quicker results, if are to receive results quickly. Everything always comes in its own time. Fay, talk to us about plants in the chakras and Reiki. How did you marry all of that together?
Yeah, this is really interesting, isn't it? Because what I find the chakras, these lovely energy centers, we know that they're not part of the original Usui teachings, because Reiki has its origins in Japan, and actually, the idea of the chakras, the energy centers, comes from the Vedic teachings. They're Sanskrit, so it's completely sort of two different forms of teachings that we brought together. But I thought I couldn't resist putting in a chapter that marries the chakra centers with the plants, because we're so well versed in terms of we're so familiar with the idea, the concept of energy centers. And I feel that I'm often asked by students, for example, I have trouble grounding, or my heart chakra is really blocked. What plants, can help me? And so, yes, I've included in the book just some ideas really on the concept of the chakras, and really, again, the idea of being drawn to which plants we are guided to, because I think it's quite well documented and understood that, rose, for example, or rose quartz, or roses, or rose oil might be beneficial for the heart. That's an association that we're quite familiar with. But others, for example, going from the crown to the roots, are not quite so well perhaps understood. And so that's what I've included, because. And the easiest way that I like to work with the plants and the chakras, so really, again, we're opening our intuition, we're asking to be guided. And I like to, so if I was doing a self-treatment, I would focus on a particular energy center wherever I felt that I wanted healing, and then I would place plant material. Say I had a plant, so for my root chakra, for example, I might be looking at those plants like dandelion or marshmallow, these kind of roots, maybe even ginger, or licorice, these lovely root, strong, spicy, or even cloves and cinnamon, this kind of spicy, rooty herbs and plants which are going to help me to ground. And what's wonderful about working with plants is that we can work with them in so many different ways. And I've highlighted this in my chakra chapter, because we can work with plant material. So we can have, in the summer, that's wonderful. There's lots of plant material to gather, and we can have vases of flowers in our treatment spaces and so on, or we can go and sit under trees and, smell the roses. But when we're kind of in the winter season, like we are now, we can now look at all these wonderful plant products that are accessible to us, like plant essences, like flower essences, for example, and not to mention herbal medicines. But obviously, unless you're a herbalist, you're not going to be working with herbal medicines with clients. But we've also got essential oils as well, so we can be guided as to these wonderful ways that plants can kind of form, be the products that we can make from them, and also even imagery. And so having beautiful pictures on the walls of wonderful plants. And again, when we look at the chakra system and plants, we often will look at, well, what's the color of the flower? Dandelion, for example, is a lovely bright yellow. So we would think, oh, okay, so that's kind of a very sun connection. Or would that be a solar plexus connection there too? So that's wonderful that, looking at the sort of the color correspondences as well, and comparing that to the colors of the flowers. So there's lots of different ways that we can combine working with plants, and also we can call them in through prayer as well, just like we would call to the flow of Reiki and ask Reiki to flow through us. We can also call to these plants that we feel connected to or aligned with to come and be present with us for our personal healing and for the healing of our friends and family.
Okay. Now, one of the tenets of Reiki is not to worry. And in your book, you talk about a Reiki worry doll. Tell us about the Reiki worry doll.
So this is, in a sense, it's a similar idea to the lovely Reiki medicine bag, because we're gathering you choose something that you're particularly anxious around, for example, And then we're going to gather plant material that you feel can help you with this specific issue. And then what I do, to call it a Reiki worry doll sounds like mine ends up usually being a little bit more of a bundle rather than looking like a doll. It depends. If I've managed to gather some twigs and some leaves and all sorts of things, it might. But what we want to be doing is we want to fashion a bundle or a doll shape that we can beam Reiki into, and that we can visualize that worry, that anxiety that we have flowing away. And it's really for trust, because when we worry, we have, what we're doing is we're forgetting that we're not in control, and we're trying to be in control. We're not surrendering to that higher power that really has our best interests at heart. And so we will basically charge these lovely elements of nature that we've tied together with ribbons, and we will hold all of that together. And it's really like a worry doll kind of bundle pouch that I make. And we just imagine yourself with that worry doll, safe and protected and free of worry. And sometimes I'll add essential oil or a flower essence spray to the bundle, and I place it by my bedside, or I'll have it with me. And it's like a touchstone. It's a reminder of safety and protection and trust. That's really that's the magic that we're creating when we create the Reiki worry doll. And also it's, again, you kind of have that with you for a while, and it's just really observing how the issue that you were initially worried about will shift, and that perception will shift, and that's where this and it shifts into something else, and you'll suddenly realize, oh, okay, you know what, I'm going to bury my worry doll in the garden and say thank you, and put it back to nature, and now I'm kind of moving in a different direction with my personal growth.
There you go, folks. You can shift your energy should you choose. Now, Fay, you say that your favorite time for self-reiki is at night. Why is that?
I think it's because it's the time that I know that I'm pausing and I'm gathering myself, and I'm in that kind of authentic space. I still will, I was going to say I still will during the day, but actually mainly it's at night. But the thing I love to do, and I recommend everybody can do this every day, is get outside in nature and feel that connection to the elements. And when I'm out in nature, I will ask Reiki to flow through me, to guide me. And that is one practice which I do. It's not quite self-practice in that I'm not placing my hands on my body. I'm just asking, I'm basically kind of acknowledging that I am Reiki, and I'm allowing it to flow through me, and just observing where I walk as I'm out and about. And when I say out in nature, I mean just outside, because even in the depths of a city, we will see plants growing in sidewalks. We will come across, like I was mentioning earlier in my journey, when I came across that shop front in Paris, which was just full of amazing plants, and it stole my heart. So that's the beauty of it. So that practice of connecting with Reiki when I'm out in nature is something that I like to actually do every day.
Okay. Now, when we go to FayJohnstone.com, what are we going to find there?
Firstly, you'll find out how you can work with me and sort of how we can stay connected. So I actually do a regular online Reiki shares at the moment, which are free for everybody to attend, to come and experience Reiki and share Reiki together. I also have a YouTube channel, which is my name, Fay Johnstone, and that has a regular video sharing a different practice of Reiki or meditation or healing or shamanic journeys in nature, for example. So those are two wonderful ways. And you can find me on Instagram at Plants That Speak. That's where you'll find me there.
Okay. Well, our time has been so wonderful together. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, but we're at our close. What pearl of wisdom would you like to leave with our audience today?
I would like to just really ask everybody to open their hearts next time they're in nature. Find a plant, find a tree that can be your support, your friend. get a plant friend and open yourself to the plant friend, because that plant friend is dying. It's calling out for you, and it is there to support you and guide you, give you strength and wisdom. So hug a tree, find a plant friend, and you'll really come into alignment with the truth of who you are.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It reminds me of a real quick story that happened to me. I was walking my dog at a local park, and the dog wanted to go sniff under a pine tree, so I'm following the dog. I let her choose her own walks. So I went under the tree with her, and the tree released a pine cone, you're not going to believe this, directly in my hand. Okay, I was like, wow. So the pine cone is now in my house, but, the energy, so whenever I go to that park, and we have a little conversation, me, the tree, and the dog. So I thanked it profusely, but, I really get what you're talking about. And, folks, even if you're not attuned to Reiki per se, you can still utilize everything that Fay has talked about. And then if you choose to take it a step further, because Reiki is good for everyone and everything, contact a practitioner and take the course. Fay does offer the courses on her website. You can check that out. So Fay, thank you for being with us today as we collectively get over it. And for the audience, I thank you too. I am truly honored, and I appreciate your time and attention. And I want you guys to remember that the most important choice that you can make is what you choose to make important. Consider making the masterful choice of Plant Spirit Reiki. Abundant blessings, light, and love to all. Agape.